There's no doubt that the new monarchs of the United Kingdom are in their twilight years, so speculation has run rampant about what happens when they die. In the case of King Charles' death, the title change of the Queen is clear. King Charles III was officially crowned King of the United Kingdom at the long-awaited coronation ceremony at Westminster Abbey on May 6th, with 20 million Britons tuning in to watch the historic event take place. Camilla has just been thrown out of the palace, and this time it's not just about scandals or stolen jewels. Shocking new proof has linked her directly to Princess Diana's death. The royal family is stunned, the public is furious, and King Charles had no choice but to act. After years of suspicion, truth finally caught up with her. This isn't a rumor. This is the moment everything changed, and the crown will never be the same. The secret inquiry no one knew about. In March 2005, Prince William quietly authorized a covert legal audit into the events surrounding Princess Diana's death in 1997. The inquiry, internally labeled Operation Orchid, focused on the 3-day window between August 28th and August 31st, 1997, during her final visit to Paris. A sealed 2003 legal dossier, previously dismissed, identified irregular security changes, particularly around Diana's protection detail. It also named associates tied to Clarence House, specifically referencing influence from Camilla's inner circle. What had long been viewed as accident was suddenly under formal review as calculated misdirection. By May 2025, former French investigator Jean-Luc Martin testified that records from the crash investigation had been redacted in September 1997 at the request of the British Embassy. New documents revealed a critical shift in Diana's motorcade escort timing, delayed by 12 hours due to last-minute reassignments. Surveillance logs also showed secretive palace emails labeled Legacy I. These were tied to communications made from Clarence House and contained instructions referring to handling destabilizing risk language never before seen in connection with the crash. An even more damning piece of evidence emerged from an MI6 whistleblower. The agency released encrypted voice files, one of which was time-stamped August 29, 1997 at 22:15. The voice later confirmed to be Camilla's asked, "Are you sure the escort can wait?" That motorcade, delayed by 45 minutes, never reached its destination. The crash at the Alma Tunnel took Diana's life just after midnight, on August 31st. These recordings, never before disclosed to the public, contradicted every previous claim that the tragedy was purely accidental. The inquiry's final report, submitted on May 28, 2025, concluded that Diana's security detail had been inexplicably downgraded from 4 personnel to 1 just minutes before she entered the tunnel. Surveillance videos and guard rosters confirmed the shift. When William read the findings, he was silent. Behind closed doors, he said, "This wasn't incompetence. This was betrayal." What began as a quiet review became a moral reckoning. The monarchy had to answer for decisions that had remained buried for nearly 3 decades. With Operation Orchid now concluded and secret files unsealed, a new and chilling piece of the puzzle surfaced. A handwritten letter by Diana herself. Long hidden from public view, this letter, penned in October 1996, foretold betrayal in startling detail. Her private fears were no longer dismissed as emotional paranoia. They were now supported by evidence. In the next section, we explore how this letter reshaped history and redefined guilt within the palace walls. Diana's 1996 letter finally made public. In June 2025, forensic experts at the Royal Archives in Edinburgh authenticated a personal letter written by Princess Diana on October 12, 1996. The document, sealed for more than 29 years, was stored in a private vault, once owned by her former butler, Paul Burrell. Forensic testing confirmed that the ink stationery and handwriting matched materials Diana used at Kensington Palace. The letter warned, "There is a plan. Camilla has more power than anyone believes." These words, long ignored, took on urgent meaning after the findings from Operation Orchid. Alongside the original letter was a second, even more specific note, dated June 1st, 1997, only 10 weeks before her death. It read, "There is a move underway. If anything happens to me on the trip, open this." Diana was referring to her planned visit to the French Riviera with Dodi Al-Fayed. The envelope containing this note had remained sealed until Prince William exercised emergency override authority in May 2025. Legal scholars quickly recognized the letters as both personal testimony and evidentiary warning. Internal palace emails recovered during the Operation Orchid audit confirmed that between August 15th and August 30th, Clarence House staff exchanged memos containing phrases like "destabilization may be required" and "legacy transition." Metadata from these emails confirmed that they were sent during the same window Diana wrote her second note. Legal advisors now considered the two letters as posthumous declarations messages from a woman who saw what was coming. Combined with the voice recordings, they turned palace suspicion into documented pattern. On June 15, 2025, major UK broadcasters released Diana's letters to the public. Within hours, justice for Diana trended across 81 countries. On June 17th, Parliament opened an emergency debate. Commentators called it the most significant revelation in the royal family's modern history. What was once speculation had now become state-level evidence. Camilla's influence, once whispered about, was now written into history in Diana's own hand. Her letters, ignored for decades, finally spoke loud enough to demand accountability from the very palace that had once silenced her. As Diana's letters rocked the monarchy, public pressure surged. But the final blow to Camilla wouldn't come from the press or protesters. It would come from within the palace itself. In the next section, we'll uncover how Princess Anne, long considered the royal family's iron shield, uncovered a hidden financial link between Camilla and the 1997 crash. And what she did next would make headlines around the world. Princess Anne uncovers the hidden financial trail. By July 2025, Princess Anne, fierce, meticulous, and unshakably loyal to her mother's legacy, initiated her own inquiry, separate from Operation Orchid. Aware that the palace needed more than emotional proof, Anne focused on tracing financial transactions from the Clarence House accounts between 1996 and 1998. Working with Edward Sefton, her longtime royal auditor, Anne discovered that on August 29, 1997, a sum of £2.4 million had been wired from a discreet offshore trust in the Cayman Islands to a private contractor in Paris. The recipient, a now defunct security logistics firm known as Lucentia Global. Lucentia Global was unknown to the royal payroll and had no documented contracts with MI6 or official palace operations. The firm's only notable assignment, a vehicle transfer contract on the very weekend Diana died. The paper trail was chilling. On August 28th, Lucentia received instructions to facilitate evening surveillance disruption at the Ritz Perez, the same hotel where Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed dined on their final night. Lucentia's local partner Jean Moncler later testified that the phrase disruption meant reassignment of escorts and altered departure routes. Everything aligned with the crash timeline. Digging further, Anne uncovered emails between Camilla's longtime aide Harrison Dent and Lucentia's UK liaison. One message dated August 20th, 1997, included the chilling line, "Final assurance required. Delays are non-attributable." This correspondence, buried in encrypted servers in Berkshire, was verified by cyber forensic teams as authentic. More than a coincidence, it was a conspiracy funded and facilitated through palace influence. Camilla. once a distant figure in Diana's public tragedy, now appeared in the shadows of its orchestration. Anne delivered her findings directly to King Charles on July 12, 2025, in a private audience inside Windsor Castle. He reportedly sat silent for 40 minutes, staring at the transaction records, the offshore bank logs, and the contractor briefs. The man who once defied the world to defend Camilla now said nothing. When Anne finally spoke, her words were brief, but piercing. "She killed our mother's peace." Charles closed the file, and with his head bowed gave Anne the directive she had been waiting for. Do what must be done. With the financial evidence now in King Charles's own hands, and Anne standing guard over justice, the palace faced a truth it could no longer hide. But it wasn't until Prince William stepped forward that the reckoning truly began. The next chapter unfolded at Kensington Palace, where William broke royal silence with a move that would shock the monarchy and the world at it. William demands arrest behind palace gates. On July 16, 2024, Prince William summoned his legal counsel, Sir Daniel Grayesmark, to Kensington Palace for an unscheduled emergency briefing. Armed with Anne's full financial report, Diana's letters, and Operation Orchid's final transcript, William issued an unprecedented royal warrant. At exactly 9:32 a.m., he signed an official request to Scotland Yard's Royal Security Division, invoking the Crown Integrity Act of 2019, a statute rarely used except in national-level betrayal. Camilla Parker Bowles, Queen Consort of the United Kingdom, was now under criminal review. Within hours, palace gates closed. No media leaks, no press briefings. At 2:15 a.m., two unmarked vehicles entered the north gate of Clarence House. Camilla, unaware of what was unfolding, was reportedly on a private call with her sister, Annabel Elliot. A senior officer approached her private study and informed her calmly but directly. Under authority granted by the sovereign's estate, you are being placed under palace confinement, pending charges of treason and conspiracy to manipulate state assets. Camilla, according to staff, went pale, but said only one word, William, by 4:00 p.m. A sealed arrest notice was hand-delivered to King Charles's personal chamber. Though emotionally shattered, Charles signed off the document. According to aides, he wept while signing it, stating only, "For Diana, for the truth." The next day, Camilla was formally placed under royal house arrest, confined to the east wing of Balmoral, under 24-hour surveillance. Her royal security detail was revoked, and all communications monitored by the Crown's legal office. Officially, she retained the title Queen Consort. In practice, she was now a royal prisoner. When the public found out on July 18th, it ignited global fire. News outlets from BBC to CNN carried headlines like "Camilla under arrest," "Monarchy in crisis." Online, over 4 million tweets used the hashtag #JusticeForDiana within 12 hours. Protesters gathered outside Clarence House and Buckingham Palace demanding full prosecution. Some even held signs reading 30 years too late. For the first time in modern royal history, the people, the law, and the crown itself had aligned on one thing. Camilla could no longer hide behind royal titles. With Camilla now facing the full weight of legal and moral judgment, the stage was set for a dramatic unraveling of her role in the palace. But the final act wouldn't be played behind closed doors. It would erupt inside Westminster Hall, where her public interrogation would send shockwaves through the kingdom. In the next section, we dive into the trial that changed everything. The trial that rocked Westminster Hall. Camilla's royal tribunal began on July 24, 2025, held inside the historic Westminster Hall under the public eye and the shadow of the late Queen Elizabeth II's portrait. The room, packed with press, legal teams, and royal staff, fell silent as the lead prosecutor, Lady Eloise Marrow, read the charges: conspiracy to defraud the sovereign estate, posthumous defamation of Princess Diana, and obstruction of historical truth. These weren't symbolic accusations. They carried potential sentencing under royal law, removal of title exile, and asset seizure. Evidence was presented for 8 hours straight. Diana's handwritten letters from 1996 and 1997, the Lucentia Global Payment receipts dated August 29, 1997, and the voice recording time-stamped 22:15, just 2 days before Diana's fatal crash, were all displayed. Camilla, seated quietly in a navy coat dress, refused to speak during the initial sessions. Her legal defense, led by Sir Alaric Grant, argued that none of the documents proved intent to harm, only mismanagement. But public sentiment was already boiling. Cameras panned to Prince William's stoic face and Princess Anne's unwavering glare. Then came the emotional peak. William himself took the stand on July 25th. He read directly from his mother's letter. "They want me out of the way." The courtroom fell silent. "I believe my mother knew exactly who she was fighting against," William stated, "and we failed her." His voice didn't tremble. The strength behind his words was enough to convict in hearts even before the law spoke. When asked if he forgave Camilla, he said only, "Forgiveness is not mine to give. Justice is." On July 28, 2025, the tribunal delivered its verdict. Guilty Camilla was stripped of her ceremonial roles, barred from any future inheritance of royal assets, and sentenced to indefinite exile under supervised confinement at a private estate in Isle of Skye. The crowd outside Westminster erupted in cheers. It wasn't just a verdict. It was closure for Diana, for Charlotte, for a nation that had waited 28 years for the truth. As the gavel fell on Camilla's final claim to the crown, the monarchy turned toward a new future. But history would not let go so easily. In the next section, we explore how Camilla's exile reshaped the very identity of the royal family, and why Diana's shadow may always remain at its center. Exile to Isle of Skye. On August 2, 2025, Camilla was discreetly transferred to a private estate on the Isle of Skye, a remote location selected by the Royal Exile Council for its isolation and limited access. The estate, once owned by a distant cousin of the Queen Mother, was stripped of modern amenities, surrounded by 3.2 miles of forest and cliffs. A royal decree signed by King Charles the previous evening officially banned Camilla from visiting any royal palace ceremonial event or public engagement under crown authority. She was in every sense a ghost of her former title. The media called it a velvet exile, but insiders knew the truth. The estate had only 6 staff, all crown-appointed, including 2 security officers, 1 cook, a nurse, and 2 administrative stewards. Camilla's communication was limited to supervised calls once a week, and her only visitor allowed was her sister Annabel Elliot, pending approval. All funding for her upkeep was reallocated from personal Parker Bowles family assets, not the sovereign grant. The estate's perimeter was under silent monitoring by Scotland Yard, who classified her status as Tier 3 Containment Royal Security Breach Risk. Camilla's days reportedly followed a strict routine. Wake up at 6:30 a.m., meal check-ins, therapy sessions twice a week, and an enforced lights out by 9:00 p.m. She was allowed access to books, no internet, and only censored news reports. Her only window to the world became the occasional mailed letters from her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, both of whom had also faced scrutiny. Laura, after her tribunal testimony, was stripped of art trustee privileges at the National Gallery, and Tom resigned from his Daily Mail food column amid public backlash. while Camilla faded into silence on the wind-swept edges of Scotland. Inside the walls of Kensington Palace, a different kind of storm was brewing. Prince William, now more resolute than ever, turned his full attention to one question that remained unanswered for nearly 3 decades. Who else knew the next revelations would not only shake the monarchy's present, but threaten to rewrite its past? The secret pact between Charles and Camilla exposed. On August 9, 2025, just 1 week after Camilla's exile, an anonymous palace informant leaked a sealed document to the Times. Labeled Protocol 97. The file was dated September 12, 1997, less than 2 weeks after Princess Diana's funeral. It revealed that Charles and Camilla had signed a private communication and protection pact created under the advisement of their former legal strategist, Sir Aldrich Hawthorne. The document outlined how any involvement Camilla may have had in public destabilizing actions would be concealed for the monarchy's survival. The file shocked the public and Parliament. The House of Commons demanded immediate inquiry. On August 11th, MP Eleanor Greenfield filed a motion calling for a royal oversight hearing. Within the file were notes from Charles's private secretary, acknowledging receipt of reports involving non-traditional contacts between Camilla's aides and unknown external security agencies from June to August 1997. Although no direct confession was cited, the implication was damning. Charles knew about Camilla's financial entanglements as early as 1997 and chose silence. When Charles was confronted by the Royal Advisory Committee on August 13th, he appeared visibly shaken. According to insider accounts, he admitted only this: "I loved her enough to protect her, even when I feared the worst." That sentence, leaked through unofficial palace channels, sparked fresh outrage. #ProtectDiana surged again, hitting 5 million mentions in a day. More importantly, it opened the gates for public questioning about Charles's own role, not just in the cover-up, but in the emotional aftermath suffered by William and Harry, who were aged just 15 and 12 when they lost their mother. As the monarchy reeled from decades-old secrets finally coming to light, Catherine began building something no crown could fabricate: public trust rooted in authenticity. And in the following weeks, as Camilla faded and Charles wavered, Catherine rose not with spectacle, but with resolve. Next, we explore how Diana's legacy was finally secured, not by courts or decrees, but by a daughter-in-law who carried her memory like armor. Catherine locks Diana's legacy for Charlotte. By August 18th, 2005, exactly 3 weeks after the tribunal verdict, Catherine summoned royal archivists to Kensington Palace for a silent yet symbolic act. Inside the secured heirloom vault, updated with biometric dual access systems, she placed a letter titled for Charlotte, "From your grandmother through me." It was Catherine's formal declaration to reassign all of Princess Diana's preserved belongings solely to the Wales bloodline, locking them in legal perpetuity. The items, including Diana's sapphire ring, the Spencer tiara, and her handwritten diaries, would now pass directly to Princess Charlotte on her 18th birthday in 2043. No media cameras were allowed. No statements were released. But by August 20th, word leaked through palace aides. The public's response was overwhelmingly supportive. Over 400,000 people signed an open letter thanking Catherine for restoring honor where betrayal once reigned. Even anti-monarchists admitted it was a move of genuine grace. For many, it marked the closing of a long emotional wound. The final assurance that Diana's legacy would never again be exploited, mishandled, or sold. Catherine had done what no investigation, trial, or law had truly achieved. She made Diana's spirit sovereign again. Internally, palace protocol changed. A new division, the Wales Legacy Trust, was created to oversee the maintenance, rotation, and educational display of Diana's historical items. Overseen by Lady Rachel Montford, a longtime Diana archivist and Charlotte's legal godmother, the trust would report directly to Catherine. For the first time, a royal collection wasn't governed by tradition or committee, but by maternal intention. "This isn't about ownership," Catherine said quietly to staff. "It's about guardianship." That statement, later quoted in the Telegraph, was hailed as a new era in legacy preservation. With Diana's legacy now sealed and Charlotte's path secured, the royal family began its slow, painful healing. But public judgment was still unfolding. And in the final act of this decade-spanning reckoning, it wouldn't be Camilla's exile or Charles's silence that defined the moment, but the people's verdict. In the next section, we explore how the nation delivered its final judgment. Not through courts, but in the streets, on screens, and in their hearts. The people's verdict. By August 24, 2025. The British public no longer waited for official statements. In cities across the United Kingdom, including London, Manchester, Cardiff, and Edinburgh, tens of thousands gathered for what became known as the Diana Marches, silent vigils, lit by candles and held beneath giant images of Princess Diana. The movement had no formal organizer. It had no political sponsors. It was born on social media, fueled by hashtags like #Diana deserved better, and Camilla is gone, which trended globally for 6 consecutive days across 31 countries. Public sentiment, once divided during the 1990s, had now aligned. For many, the 2025 Civ Tribunal verdict, Camilla's exile on August 2nd, and Catherine's actions on August 18th, represented a long overdue moral correction. Editorials in the Times, The Guardian, and even international outlets like Le Monde called it a historic reckoning of monarchy memory and manipulation. A poll conducted by YouGov on August 22nd showed that 81% of respondents believed Camilla should lose the title Queen Consort entirely, while 74% felt Charles had irrevocably damaged his moral standing by protecting her for so long. What stunned royal aides most was the overwhelming support not just for Catherine, but for Princess Charlotte. At just 10 years old, Charlotte had become the quiet figurehead of Diana's second legacy. Thousands of letters addressed to her flooded Kensington Palace, many from people who had never written to royalty before. One read, "Dear Charlotte, your grandmother made us proud. Now you make us hope." Catherine, moved by the public's words, ordered that all letters be preserved and read to Charlotte privately. It became clear the people no longer waited for crowns to tell them who to admire. They had already chosen. With the court of public opinion delivered and the monarchy's symbolic statement quietly distancing itself from Camilla, only one chapter remained to be written. It was not about punishment, but purpose. How Diana's memory, fractured for decades, would finally be rebuilt not in marble or gold, but through actions, values, and the next generation. And in that legacy, a queen would rise not from lineage alone, but from dignity. The true crown. On September 1st, 2025, exactly 28 years after the tragic death of Princess Diana in Paris, Catherine appeared publicly with Princess Charlotte at Althorpe Estate, Diana's childhood home. The event was not announced in advance. Dressed simply in navy blue, Catherine led Charlotte to Diana's memorial garden, where the young princess laid a single white rose on the stone, bearing her grandmother's name. A photograph captured the moment. No tears, no spectacle, just silence and solemnity. It became the most shared image of the year, appearing on front pages from New York to New Delhi. This was not just a tribute, it was a declaration. Catherine's gesture signaled that Diana's story would no longer be written by others, not by tabloids, not by scandals, and certainly not by the shadows of betrayal. By establishing the Diana Charlotte Legacy Fund, a newly formed charitable foundation announced on September 3rd, Catherine ensured that Diana's values of compassion, mental health support, and children's welfare would be carried forward under Charlotte's patronage. The fund received £12 million in public donations within its first 4 days, with supporters from 52 countries contributing. Inside Kensington Palace, changes followed. Diana's preserved belongings were moved to a dedicated vault wing where Charlotte would one day oversee exhibitions and educational programs in her name. A new family charter signed by Prince William on September 6th officially established the Wales family's independence in legacy governance separate from the broader royal household. The move was historic. It marked the first time a branch of the monarchy established full custodial rights over a former royal's estate and public memory. Diana, once silenced and erased, now had a formal place not just in hearts, but in royal law. As for Camilla, her name faded from royal correspondence. Her exile continued at Highgrove, now transformed into a distant estate under private security oversight. Charles, though still king, appeared less frequently in public, often seen alone during walks at Balmoral. The weight of his decisions and the revelations they sparked had clearly aged him. Meanwhile, Catherine rose not just in popularity, but in moral authority. A September 10th poll by Ipsos UK named her the most trusted royal figure with 89% approval, surpassing even Elizabeth II's final rating in 2022. The people had spoken and crowned their queen in spirit. This was never just a story about jewels or exile. It was about betrayal, truth, and the invisible power of memory. In the end, Camilla lost not just her crown, but the trust of a nation. Diana, long gone, had never been more present, and Catherine, without ceremony or title, had become the queen the people never had but always wanted. Through Charlotte, that legacy would continue. And as one letter to Kensington said best, the true crown was never on her head. It was always in her heart,